Hi there, in this video, first, we'll have a short introduction to counter instructions. After that, the connection process between Codesys and Factory IO and also its problems will be explained and solved, during a simple project to test an up counter. To learn counter instructions, a more practical project will be done in the next video. Before we get started with today's video, I just wanted to inform you about all the great content we have been releasing on the plcgoods YouTube channel, which includes industrial automation PLC programming, HMI, and microcontroller-based developments. My name is Syed Reza, and if you enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you could click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell, to receive the latest and the greatest content I will be posting through the channel. Alright, the first counter instruction is the up counter, also known as just CTU. As the name implies, this counter is used for counting up. Like timers, each counter needs a variable to store the state of its inputs and outputs. Each rising pulse on the count input will increase the current counter value by 1. When the counter value is greater than or equal to the counter limit, the first output, Q, will be enabled, and a pulse on the reset input will reset the counter value to 0. Counting down is another operation that is widely used in PLC programming. With this counter you will count down from a certain number, until it reaches 0. Each rising pulse on the first input will decrement the counter value by 1, when it reaches 0, the first output will turn on its connected coil. Note that, a rising pulse on the load input will send the PV value to the counter value. At last, the up-down counter can count both up and down. As you can see, it has a bit more pins than the two other counters. It has two count inputs, one for counting up and one for counting down. The reset input will reset the counter value to 0. The load input will send the PV value to the counter value. The first output will be on if the counter value is equal or greater than the PV value, and the second output will be on if the CV value reaches 0. In the next video, a practical project will be done to learn how the counters can be used. Now, let's see how an up counter can be tested. Let's start Codesys. Now, let's create a new standard project, like the previous videos. Now, let's add a normally open contact, with an up counter. There are several ways to add counters. Here are up and down counters, and likewise here. Also, a general box can be used. The name of any counter can be written directly, or click here to find and add your desired counter. Let's add an up counter. Like timers, counters need a variable to work correctly. For the inserted up counter, its data type is CTU. It will be used to store the state of inputs and outputs. As I mentioned before, with each rising edge at the first input, the counter value is incremented by 1. The second input can be used to reset the counter value to 0. Let's write 5 as the counter limit. So, when the counter value reaches or exceeds the number 5, the counter output, Q, will be set to true. Note that, the default data type to store the counter value is word. If I select another data type, such as integer, Codesys will convert it automatically. Now, let's connect a simple coil to the counter output. Like the previous videos, the easiest way to test the current program is using the simulation option under the online menu. As you see, the selected variable for the up counter stores the state of its inputs and outputs. Now, Let's use the A contact and press Ctrl plus F7, to change its state and create a rising edge. As you see, the counter value has been increased by 1. If the counter reaches the preset value, the counter's output and the C variable will set to true. Let's use the B contact to reset the counter value to 0. Similarly, other counters can be tested. Now, let's stop and exit from the simulation mode. Alright, another way to test a program is using Codesys Control Win v3 as a virtual PLC. Also, it can be connected to an OPC server, and after that to factory I/O. So, we'll be able to simulate industrial processes. If you don't have any problem with Codesys Control Win v3, and also you can make the connection between your program and factory I/O successfully, you can stop the video. In the next video, I'll do a more complex project to learn counter instructions. Otherwise, please watch the video to the end carefully, to learn the connection process between the Codesys and factory I/O. Because its process is a little long with some issues, and it won't be explained during next videos. Now, let's run Codesys Control Win v3, and then connect it to my program. Note that, its process has been told during the video with this link. As you can see, I need a username and password, that was already entered for the first time. What will you do if you forget your username and password? Note that, if you want to solve this problem inside the user and group section, you will need your user and password too. Also, if you want to use the reset option. In other words, if you forgot your user and password, you won't able to do anything. Now, let me enter my user and password correctly. Now, I can manage users, and also reset Codesys Control Win v3. To solve the user and password problem, first, let me skip the reset action, and save the current project. I will need to reinstall Codesys software. So, let me close Codesys, and also other software, which work with Codesys. Okay, I want to remove Codesys from my system. The standard process can be used. I mean using program and features in the control panel. But, if you install the Codesys again, the user and password problem won't be solved. I need to use other software such as Soft Organizer, which is designed to remove programs. This software can remove Codesys, and also deletes any effects of Codesys on my system. I want to remove Codesys, CodeMeter, Codesys installer. Note that, the reinstallation process takes a long time, so I have increased the video speed. Alright, Codesys programs have been removed. I prefer to restart my computer at this step. Maybe it's not necessary. Alright, after restarting, I'm going to use this file to install Codesys on my computer. Note that, during the video with this link, I explained how it can be downloaded. Alright, Codesys has been installed. Let me run Codesys Control Win v3. As you see, it doesn't work correctly. To solve this problem, find this file, rename it and then restart your computer. Again, let me restart my system, and after that, let me run CodeMeter and check its licenses. If there isn't any license, use File menu to import these two licenses. Again, let me check Codesys Control Win v3. As you see, it's working without any error. Now, let me run Codesys, and open my counter project. Alright, in the beginning, I've used the simulation option under the online menu, to test the up counter. Now, I want to test the up counter with Codesys Control Win v3 and Factory IO. First, let me select which variables can be shared with Factory IO, through an OPC server. Now, let's connect Codesys Control Win v3 to my program. As you see, the Codesys ask me to define a new user and password. Because my previous user has been removed by the reinstalling process. Instead of this user, which has been used until now, let me use plcgoods. Then the new password must be entered twice. Now, let's use the selected user and password. Pay attention, if you forgot them, you won't able to use Codesys Control Win v3, as your virtual PLC, for the next projects. In consequence, you will need to reinstall Codesys again. Therefore, it's better to write down your username and password on a piece of paper. Well, the connection with Codesys Control Win v3 has been established. Now, I can add new users, or change my password. Also, the Codesys Control Win v3 can be resetted. After that, I will need to define my user and password again. Well, I've explained what you can do, if you forgot your user and password. Now, the connection has been made, and I can use the Codesys Control Win v3 as my virtual PLC, to download and test the program. As you may have noticed, it's easier to use the simulation option under the online menu, to test programs, but the Control Win v3 can be connected to factory I/O, via an OPC server. As you know, I'm using KepServerEX software, to create my OPC server. Its demo version will run for 2 hours at a time. The 2 hours can be repeated at any time by stopping and starting the application. Fortunately, the demo version has no other limitations. Now, let's create a channel and select the Codesys item for that. After that, let's use default settings. The next step is connecting my device, Codesys Control Win v3, to the OPC server through the created channel. Note that, its necessary settings were explained during the video with this link. Now, let's use device discovery item. It automatically tries to find my device and detect its settings. Alright, my device and its settings has been detected successfully. I only need to enter my user and password. If you remember, my user is plcgoods. Now, I'm going to define some tags, which should be connected to the variables inside my program. Note that, only these variables, which have been selected inside the symbol configuration table, are accessible. OK, let me define my tags. Any name can be selected for the tag, but its address is unique. Just pay attention to arrows. After that, the data type must be selected. Similarly, let me define other tags. Remember, the counter value is a number, and its data type is not Boolean. I can select integer, or word for that. Alright, the tags have been defined. Let's click on the quick client icon to check my connection. Well, here are my tags their connection quality is good. If your connection quality is bad, check the connection settings which were explained the video with this link, or use the device discovery item which was explained during this video. Also, if you are using the demo version of KepServerEX software, you will need to stop and restart it every 2 hours. Now, let me change the counter value, and see its result on the quick client window. Alright, the connection between the OPC server and my device, Codesys Control Win v3, with this program, has been made successfully. Now, I'm going to design a simple industrial process inside factory I/O, and connect its equipment to these tags, which are connected to these variables of my program. Alright, during different videos on our YouTube channel, factory I/O software was explained and tested. Again, let me design a simple process. Let me select the integer mode for the inserted digital display, because, I want to display the counter value. Now, let me use a sensor to detect boxes. It will be used to enable the counter inside my program. Now, let's connect Factory I/O to the created OPC server by KepServerEX software. Remember, I'll start all tags with this word, FIO. Now, if I click on the Browse items, only my tags, which contain FIO letters, will appear. Now, let's connect the equipment to the tags. Alright, the inserted equipment has been connected to these tags, which are connected to my program variables via the OPC server. Note that, I've forgotten to write a program to turn on the belt conveyor. So, I run it manually by selecting its force mode. Now, let's sort windows, to have a better view of the program, the quick client window, and the design system. The sensor is activated by moving each box, and also it is connected to this variable. So, the counter value will be increased by moving each box. And when the counter value reaches 5, the push button light will be on. Also, I can use the push button to reset the counter value. Well, in this video, after a short introduction to the counters, I've explained the connection process between Codesys and Factory I/O, with its problems. In the next video, I will do a more complex project to learn the counters. Thanks for watching my content. If you have any question on this topic, make sure you leave them in the comment section below, and if you can spend a few seconds of your time liking as well as sharing this video, if you enjoyed it, that will mean a lot to me. If you have any suggestions for the channel, such as what kind of hardware or software I should be covering, then make sure to leave that in the comment section. See you next time. Bye bye.